The park was quiet, except for the faint rustling of leaves in the cold evening breeze. A man in an expensive black coat sat on a bench, his face pale and tired. He looked out of place among the homeless people scattered around the area. His eyes scanned the park until they landed on a woman sitting under a tree, wrapped in a tattered blanket. She was thin, her face worn by years of hardship, but there was a spark in her eyes that caught his attention. He stood up slowly, clutching his side as if in pain, and walked toward her. The woman watched him warily as he approached. She had seen enough of the world to know that men like him didn't come to places like this without a reason. "Can I sit here?" he asked, his voice soft but firm. She nodded, pulling her blanket tighter around her. He sat down, wincing as he did, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken questions. Finally, the man broke the silence. "I need your help," he said, his eyes fixed on the ground. The woman raised an eyebrow. "My help? You look like the kind of man who has everything. What could I possibly do for you?" He turned to look at her, his gaze intense. "I'm dying," he said bluntly. "I don't have much time left. And there's something I need to do before I go." The woman frowned, unsure of what to say. She had heard many stories in her life, but this was different. There was a raw honesty in his voice that made her listen. "What does that have to do with me?" she asked. The man took a deep breath, as if preparing himself. "I need you to pretend to be my wife," he said. The woman stared at him, stunned. "Your wife? Why would you ask me to do something like that?" He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Because I can't trust anyone else. My family, they're not what they seem. And you have nothing to lose. I'll pay you enough to change your life." The woman's mind raced. This was crazy. Insane. But the look in his eyes told her he was serious. And the mention of money, it was tempting. She had been on the streets for years, struggling to survive. This could be her chance to start over. "How much?" she asked, her voice trembling. The man reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a check. He handed it to her, and her eyes widened as she saw the amount. It was more money than she had ever seen in her life. "This is just the beginning," he said. "If you agree, there will be more. But you have to trust me." The woman hesitated, her heart pounding. This could be a trap. Or it could be the opportunity she had been waiting for. She looked at the man, searching his face for any sign of deceit. But all she saw was pain and desperation. "Why me?" she asked softly. The man smiled faintly. "Because you're strong. I can see it in your eyes. And because, there's more to this than you know." The woman took a deep breath, her mind made up. "All right," she said. "I'll do it." The man nodded, relief washing over his face. "Thank you," he said. "You won't regret this." As they stood up to leave, the woman couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change forever. But she had no idea just how much. The car ride to the billionaire's mansion was surreal. The woman sat in the back seat, her hands clutching the edges of the plush leather seat. She had never been in a car like this before. The seats were soft, the air smelled faintly of lavender, and the windows were so clean they seemed to disappear. She stared out at the passing city, her mind racing. What had she gotten herself into? The man, she still didn't know his name, sat quietly beside her, his eyes closed. He looked even paler than before, as if the short walk to the car had drained him. She wanted to ask him questions, but something about his silence stopped her. Instead, she focused on the check in her pocket, the numbers on it still burning in her mind. When the car finally stopped, they were in front of a massive iron gate. The driver pressed a button, and the gate slowly opened, revealing a sprawling estate. The woman's breath caught in her throat. The mansion was unlike anything she had ever seen. It was huge, with tall windows and a grand entrance that seemed to glow in the evening light. The car pulled up to the front door, and the driver stepped out to open it for them. The billionaire got out first, leaning heavily on his cane. He turned to the woman and offered her a hand. She hesitated for a moment before taking it, her rough fingers brushing against his smooth ones. "Welcome to your new home," he said, his voice weak but warm. The woman stepped inside, her eyes wide as she took in the opulent surroundings. The floors were marble, the walls adorned with paintings that looked like they belonged in a museum. A crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling, casting a soft, golden light over everything. She felt like she had stepped into another world. A man in a suit approached them, his face expressionless. "Sir, everything is ready," he said. The billionaire nodded. "Thank you, James. This is my wife. Please make sure she has everything she needs." The woman's heart skipped a beat at the word wife. It felt strange, almost wrong, but she didn't say anything. James gave her a polite nod and gestured for her to follow him. She glanced back at the billionaire, who was already walking away, his cane tapping softly against the floor. James led her up a grand staircase and down a long hallway. He opened a door and stepped aside, allowing her to enter. The room was breathtaking. A large bed with silk sheets, a wardrobe filled with expensive-looking clothes, and a balcony overlooking the garden. It was more than she could have ever imagined. "If you need anything, just press this button," James said, pointing to a small panel by the bed. "Dinner will be served at 8. He left, closing the door behind him, and the woman was alone. She walked over to the bed and sat down, running her hand over the soft sheets. It felt like a dream, but the check in her pocket reminded her that it was real. She had agreed to this. But why? What did this man really want from her? Later that evening, she joined the billionaire for dinner. The dining room was just as grand as the rest of the house, with a long table set with silverware and crystal glasses. The billionaire sat at the head of the table, his face drawn but calm. He gestured for her to sit beside him. "I hope you're settling in," he said as a server placed a plate of food in front of her. The woman nodded, though she felt anything but settled. "It's a lot to take in," she admitted. He smiled faintly. "I understand. But you'll get used to it. And don't worry, you're safe here." Safe. The word echoed in her mind. Why wouldn't she be safe? She wanted to ask, but before she could, the door opened, and two people walked in. A man and a woman, both dressed in expensive clothes, both looking at her with cold, calculating eyes. "Ah, my children," the billionaire said, his voice tinged with something she couldn't quite place. "This is my wife." The woman's stomach churned as the two newcomers stared at her. The man, who looked to be in his 30s, smirked. "Interesting," he said. "Father, you never cease to surprise us." The woman, who appeared to be a few years younger, crossed her arms. "Is this some kind of joke?" she asked, her voice sharp. The billionaire's expression hardened. "This is not a joke. And you will treat her with respect." The tension in the room was palpable. The woman felt like she was caught in the middle of a storm, unsure of which way to turn. She glanced at the billionaire, but his face was unreadable. After dinner, she returned to her room, her mind racing. Who were these people? Why did they seem to hate her already? And what was the billionaire hiding? She walked over to the balcony and looked out at the garden, the moonlight casting long shadows on the ground. As she stood there, she noticed a light flickering in one of the windows on the lower floor. She squinted, trying to see better, and for a moment, she thought she saw someone moving inside. But before she could get a closer look, the light went out, leaving her in darkness. She shivered, though the night was warm. Something wasn't right here. And she was determined to find out what it was. The next morning, the woman woke up early, her mind still buzzing from the events of the previous night. She dressed in one of the outfits from the wardrobe, a simple yet elegant dress that fit her perfectly, and made her way downstairs. The mansion was quiet, the only sound the soft ticking of a grandfather clock in the hallway. As she wandered through the house, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The paintings on the walls seemed to follow her with their eyes, and the silence felt heavy, almost oppressive. She found herself in the library, a room filled with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a large, ornate desk. On the desk was a photograph of the billionaire with his 2 children. They looked younger in the picture, but their expressions were just as cold. "Do you like it?" a voice said behind her, making her jump. She turned to see the billionaire's son standing in the doorway, his arms crossed and a smirk on his face. "The library, I mean. It's one of my father's favorite rooms." The woman nodded, trying to hide her unease. "It's beautiful," she said. The man walked closer, his eyes scanning her up and down. "You know, I still don't understand why he brought you here. What's so special about you?" She hesitated, unsure of how to respond. I don't know," she admitted. "He said he needed my help." The man laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Help? My father doesn't need help. He's always been in control of everything. Until now, apparently." The woman frowned. "What do you mean?" He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Let's just say there are things about my father that even I don't understand. And if you're smart, you'll stay out of it." Before she could respond, he turned and walked away, leaving her alone in the library. Her heart was pounding, and she felt more confused than ever. What was he talking about? What was the billionaire hiding? Later that day, she decided to explore the garden. The fresh air helped clear her mind, and she needed a break from the tension inside the house. As she walked along the stone path, she noticed a small shed tucked away in the corner of the garden. The door was slightly ajar, and curiosity got the better of her. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. The shed was filled with old tools and gardening supplies, but in the corner was something that caught her eye, a small, locked box. She picked it up, turning it over in her hands. It was heavy, and there was no key in sight. "What are you doing here?" a voice snapped, making her drop the box. She turned to see the billionaire's daughter standing in the doorway, her eyes blazing with anger. "This is private property," the woman said, her voice cold. "You have no right to be here." "I'm sorry," the woman stammered. "I didn't mean to, just stay out of things that don't concern you," the daughter interrupted. "You're here to play a role, nothing more. Don't forget that." The woman nodded, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. She quickly left the shed and hurried back to the house, her mind racing. What was in that box? And why were the billionaire's children so hostile toward her? That evening, she decided to confront the billionaire. She found him in his study, sitting by the fireplace with a glass of wine in his hand. He looked up as she entered, his expression softening. "Is everything all right?" he asked. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "I need to know what's going on," she said. "Your children, they don't like me. And I feel like there's something you're not telling me." The billionaire sighed, setting his glass down. "I know this is difficult for you," he said. "But you have to trust me. My children, they're not what they seem. They've always been jealous of anyone who gets close to me." "But why?" she asked. "What are they so afraid of?" He hesitated, his eyes filled with sadness. "Because they know the truth," he said. "And the truth is dangerous." The woman's heart skipped a beat. "What truth?" The billionaire looked at her for a long moment, as if weighing his words. "There's something I need to show you," he said finally. But not here. Not now. Wait for my signal. Before she could ask more questions, he stood up and walked out of the room, leaving her alone with her thoughts. She felt more confused than ever, but one thing was clear: she was in the middle of something much bigger than she had imagined. That night, as she lay in bed, she heard a soft knock on her door. She opened it to find James standing there, his face grim. "The master needs to see you," he said. "Follow me." Her heart pounding, she followed him down the hallway and into a part of the house she had never seen before. They stopped in front of a hidden door, which James opened to reveal a staircase leading down into the darkness. "Go," he said. "He's waiting for you." The woman hesitated, but something in James's eyes told her she had no choice. She took a deep breath and stepped into the darkness, the door closing behind her. The staircase was narrow and dimly lit, the air cool and damp. The woman's footsteps echoed as she descended, her heart pounding with every step. At the bottom, she found herself in a small, dimly lit room. The walls were lined with shelves filled with books, files, and strange-looking devices. In the center of the room stood the billionaire, his face pale but determined. "You came," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What is this place?" she asked, her eyes wide as she took in the strange surroundings. "This is where I've been working for the past few years," he said. "It's where I've been trying to fix my mistakes." The woman frowned. "Mistakes? What are you talking about?" The billionaire hesitated, his eyes filled with pain. "I need to show you something," he said finally. He walked over to a desk and picked up a small, sleek device. It looked like a cross between a remote control and a futuristic gadget. He handed it to her, his hands trembling. "This is part of the project I've been working on," he said. "It's called the Chronos Project. It was supposed to change the world. But instead, it destroyed my life." The woman stared at the device, her mind racing. "What does it do?" she asked. "It's a prototype for time travel," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "I thought I could use it to fix the past, to undo the mistakes I've made. But something went wrong. The experiment, it backfired. And now, there are people who want to use it for their own gain." The woman's heart skipped a beat. "Who?" she asked. The billionaire's face darkened. "A group of powerful individuals. They call themselves the Eclipse. They've been after me for years, trying to steal my research. And now that I'm dying, they're getting desperate." The woman felt a chill run down her spine. "Is that why you hired me?" she asked. "To protect me from them?" The billionaire nodded. "Yes. But also because I believe you can help me finish what I started. You're the key to fixing the experiment." The woman shook her head, overwhelmed. "I don't understand. How can I help? I'm nobody." The billionaire stepped closer, his eyes intense. "You're stronger than you think. And you have something they don't, a pure heart. That's why I chose you." The woman felt a lump in her throat. She didn't know what to say. Everything was happening so fast, and she felt like she was in over her head. But at the same time, she couldn't ignore the sense of purpose that was growing inside her. "What do you need me to do?" she asked finally. The billionaire smiled faintly. "First, we need to find the missing piece of the puzzle. There's a file hidden somewhere in this house. It contains the final calculations for the experiment. Without it, we can't proceed." "Where is it?" she asked. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I suspect my children might have it. They've been trying to stop me from completing the project. They think it's too dangerous." The woman nodded, her mind racing. "I'll find it," she said. "But you have to promise me one thing." "What?" he asked. "Tell me the whole truth," she said. "No more secrets." The billionaire hesitated, then nodded. I promise. The woman spent the next few days searching the house, trying to find the missing file. She avoided the billionaire's children as much as possible, but she could feel their eyes on her wherever she went. She searched the library, the study, even the garden shed, but found nothing. One night, as she was walking through the hallway, she heard voices coming from one of the rooms. She recognized the voices of the billionaire's son and daughter. Curiosity got the better of her, and she pressed her ear against the door. We need to find that file before she does, the son said, his voice tense. If she gets her hands on it, it's over. I know, the daughter replied. But where could it be? We've searched everywhere. Maybe we missed something, the son said. We need to think like him. Where would he hide it? The woman's heart raced. They were looking for the same file. She had to find it first. The next morning, she decided to search the billionaire's bedroom. It was the one place she hadn't looked yet. She waited until he was out of the house, then slipped inside. The room was large and luxurious, with a massive bed and a fireplace. She started searching through the drawers, her hands trembling. Finally, she found a hidden compartment in the bottom of the wardrobe. Inside was a small, leather-bound folder. She opened it and saw pages filled with complex equations and diagrams. This had to be it. As she was about to leave, she heard footsteps outside the door. Her heart stopped. She quickly hid the folder under her shirt and slipped out of the room, just as the billionaire's son turned the corner. What are you doing here? He asked, his eyes narrowing. I was just looking for something, she stammered. He stepped closer, his expression dark. You're lying. What did you take? Before she could respond, the billionaire appeared at the end of the hallway. Leave her alone, he said, his voice firm. The son glared at him but didn't say anything. He turned and walked away, leaving the woman and the billionaire alone. Did you find it? The billionaire asked. The woman nodded, her heart still racing. Yes. But they're after it too. The billionaire's face hardened. Then we don't have much time. Come with me. The woman followed the billionaire through a hidden passage behind the bookshelf in his study. The narrow tunnel was dimly lit, and the air was thick with dust. She clutched the folder tightly under her arm, her heart pounding as they moved quickly through the darkness. Where are we going? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Somewhere safe, the billionaire replied, his voice strained. They'll be looking for us everywhere. We can't stay here. They emerged from the tunnel into a small garage hidden beneath the mansion. A sleek black car was parked inside, its engine already running. The billionaire opened the passenger door for her and gestured for her to get in. She hesitated for a moment, then slid into the seat, still clutching the folder. The billionaire got into the driver's seat and started the car. The garage door opened silently, revealing the dark night outside. He drove quickly but carefully, avoiding the main roads and sticking to backstreets. Who are these people? The woman asked, breaking the silence. The Eclipse, what do they want? The billionaire's grip tightened on the steering wheel. They're a powerful group, he said. Scientists, politicians, business leaders, people who will do anything to get what they want. They've been after my research for years. They think it will give them ultimate power. The woman frowned. But why? What's so special about this project? The billionaire glanced at her, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and determination. The Chronos project isn't just about time travel, he said. It's about rewriting history. Changing the past to control the future. If they get their hands on it, they could manipulate the world in ways we can't even imagine. The woman felt a chill run down her spine. And you think I can help stop them? He nodded. You're the key to fixing the experiment. Without you, it won't work. She didn't know what to say. The weight of his words was overwhelming. She had spent her entire life feeling invisible, like she didn't matter. But now, this man was telling her she was the key to saving the world. It was too much to process. They drove in silence for a while, the city lights fading behind them as they entered the countryside. The woman stared out the window, her mind racing. She thought about the life she had left behind, the cold nights on the streets, the constant struggle to survive. And now, here she was, in a car with a billionaire, running from a shadowy organization. It felt like a dream, but the folder in her hands reminded her it was real. Suddenly, the billionaire's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face turning pale. "We've been spotted," he said, his voice tense. "They're coming." The woman's heart raced. "What do we do?" The billionaire didn't answer. Instead, he pressed a button on the dashboard, and the car's engine roared to life. The speedometer shot up as they raced down the empty road. The woman gripped the seat, her knuckles turning white. Behind them, headlights appeared in the distance, growing closer by the second. The billionaire's hands tightened on the wheel as he swerved onto a narrow dirt road, the car bouncing over the uneven ground. "Hold on," he shouted. The woman closed her eyes as the car skidded around a sharp corner, the tires screeching. She could hear the sound of another engine behind them, getting closer. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst. The billionaire suddenly slammed on the brakes, and the car came to a stop in front of an old, abandoned barn. "Get out," he yelled, throwing open his door. The woman didn't hesitate. She grabbed the folder and jumped out of the car, following the billionaire as he ran toward the barn. They barely made it inside before the sound of screeching tires filled the air. The billionaire quickly locked the door behind them and led her to a hidden trapdoor in the floor. "Down here," he said, pulling it open. They climbed down into a dark, damp cellar. The billionaire flipped a switch, and a dim light flickered on, revealing a small, makeshift lab. There were computers, monitors, and strange-looking machines scattered around the room. "This is one of my safe houses," he explained, breathing heavily. "We'll be safe here for now." The woman looked around, her mind reeling. "How long have you been planning for this?" she asked. The billionaire sighed. "A long time. I knew this day would come eventually." They sat down on a couple of old crates, the adrenaline slowly fading. The woman looked at the billionaire, his face pale and drawn. He looked so much older than when she had first met him, as if the weight of everything was crushing him. "Why did you choose me?" she asked softly. "Out of all the people in the world, why me?" The billionaire looked at her, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and hope. "Because you're different," he said. "You've been through so much, but you've never given up. You have a strength that most people don't. And I believe that strength is what will save us." The woman felt tears welling up in her eyes. She had spent her entire life feeling like she didn't matter, like she was invisible. But now, this man was telling her she was special. That she could make a difference. "I'll help you," she said, her voice steady. "Whatever it takes." The billionaire smiled faintly. "Thank you," he said. "But we're not out of the woods yet. They'll find us eventually. We need to finish the experiment before they do." The woman nodded, her determination growing. "Then let's get to work." The dim light of the underground lab flickered as the woman and the billionaire worked tirelessly. The folder she had found was spread out on a table, its pages filled with complex equations and diagrams. The billionaire explained each step as they went, his voice calm but urgent. "The Chronos project isn't just about traveling through time," he said, pointing to a diagram. "It's about creating a bridge between parallel realities. If we can stabilize the connection, we can prevent the eclipse from using the technology to rewrite history." The woman frowned, trying to keep up. "But how does that involve me?" Why am I the key? The billionaire hesitated, his eyes filled with a mix of guilt and hope. Because of your unique genetic code, he said. When I first met you, I didn't know it. But after running some tests, I discovered something extraordinary. Your DNA contains a rare marker, one that's essential for stabilizing the experiment. The woman stared at him, stunned. My DNA? How is that even possible? It's a long story, he said, his voice heavy. But the short version is that you're connected to this project in ways you can't imagine. Without you, the experiment will fail, and the eclipse will win. The woman felt a wave of emotions, confusion, fear, and a strange sense of purpose. What do I need to do? She asked. The billionaire handed her a small device, similar to the one he had shown her earlier. This is a neural interface, he said. It will connect your mind to the machine. Once we activate it, you'll need to focus on stabilizing the connection. It won't be easy, but I believe you can do it. She took the device, her hands trembling. What happens if it doesn't work? The billionaire's face darkened. Then the eclipse will gain control of the technology, and the consequences will be catastrophic. Before she could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed above them. The billionaire's eyes widened. They're here, he whispered. We're out of time. The woman's heart raced as the sound of voices grew louder. The eclipse had found them. The billionaire quickly activated the machine, the room filling with a low hum as the monitors lit up. You need to do this now, he said, his voice urgent. I'll hold them off. No, she said, grabbing his arm. You can't go up there alone. They'll kill you. The billionaire smiled faintly, his eyes filled with sadness. I've lived a long life, he said. And I've made many mistakes. But this is my chance to make things right. You're the future now. You have to finish this. Tears filled her eyes as she realized what he was saying. I can't do this without you, she whispered. Yes, you can, he said firmly. You're stronger than you think. Trust yourself. He turned and walked toward the stairs, his cane tapping softly against the floor. The woman watched him go, her heart breaking. She wanted to stop him, to tell him there had to be another way. But deep down, she knew he was right. This was their only chance. She took a deep breath and placed the neural interface on her head. The machine hummed louder, the monitors flashing with data. She closed her eyes and focused, trying to block out the sound of shouting and footsteps above. Images flashed in her mind, memories of her life on the streets, the cold nights, the hunger, the loneliness. But then she saw something else, a vision of the future, a world where the eclipse had won, where history had been rewritten to serve their greed. It was a dark, terrifying world, and she knew she couldn't let it happen. She focused harder, her mind reaching out to stabilize the connection. The machine's hum grew louder, the monitors flashing faster. She could feel the energy building, the bridge between realities forming. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from above, followed by the sound of gunshots. The woman's heart skipped a beat, but she forced herself to stay focused. She couldn't let the billionaire's sacrifice be in vain. The machine's hum reached a crescendo, and then everything went silent. The monitors flashed one last time before shutting down. The woman opened her eyes, her body trembling with exhaustion. She looked around the lab, her heart pounding. Had it worked? Had she done it? Before she could find out, the door to the lab burst open. She turned, expecting to see the eclipse. But instead, it was the billionaire's son and daughter, their faces filled with shock and confusion. What did you do? The son asked, his voice trembling. The woman stood up, her legs weak. I finished the experiment, she said. I stopped the eclipse. The daughter stepped forward, her eyes wide. But, what about our father? The woman's heart sank. She didn't know how to answer. Before she could say anything, the sound of sirens filled the air. The eclipse was retreating, their plans foiled. The woman looked at the billionaire's children, her eyes filled with tears. "He saved us," she said. "He gave everything to stop them." The son and daughter exchanged a look, their faces filled with a mix of grief and realization. For the first time, they seemed to understand the truth about their father, and the sacrifice he had made.